Hello, welcome to another chat with the Essex UFO and Paranormal Group. I've got a lovely lady that gave us a talk a little while, well, a couple of weeks, just a few weeks back now,
Yes,
wasn't it,
yes, yes, just
Dodie?
before
It's Dodie
Christmas.
Hamilton, and we're going to go try and go a little bit deeper into maybe what life after death is all about, and a bit more of Dodie's experiences, and
Hmm.
because I think you've had a very interesting life, haven't you, with your
Yeah,
medical profession as well.
yes, yes. It really, in some ways, one followed the other. From a child, the interest as a child, and then the out of body as it started in the early 60s, really, and then nursing and writing. And it's followed a trajectory, really, which is what's this about? What is
Hmm.
happening? What happens to us?
Which is a
And
question we
why?
all ask, isn't it?
Yeah, why? Yeah. I was watching something recently. It was a lovely anime called Paranoid, and it was talking about what are we? What are we? Are we just flesh, or are we more? And I heard this wonderful quote where someone was saying, talking of parallel lives, which is great interest to me, and the idea that we are many, many, many creatures, many, many, many people, many aspects of us, many kind of levels of us. And I do believe that. I
Hmm.
believe that when we dream as well, that sometimes we move in and out of those levels, if you like,
Yeah.
connect.
Because are we on those same existences all the time at the same time type of thing? Is
I
that what
think
you mean?
I think not necessarily at the same time, but slightly ahead, slightly behind, a kind of progression, which is one of the things I always do before I sleep at night. It might sound absurd, but I
Nothing,
always
nothing sounds absurd to me.
good, good, good. I always ask for one world where for one whole night, every creature, every living thing can have a night of peace. Every living thing, everything that breathes and walks and flies, can have a night of peace. And I seem to know that somewhere along the line, this will happen. Thought, asking, loving thoughts,
Hmm.
create a situation. And that's what I always ask for. Animals, people, everything that lives, one night of peace at
Hmm.
least.
I suppose, I mean, the power of thought, as they say, is kind of like a prayer type of thing. If everyone's aiming everything in one direction,
Mm.
I think it's got quite a lot of power there, isn't it? And I guess
Huge,
if we all did things
huge.
like that,
Yes,
we could
I do
actually make a
think
big
that.
difference.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you remember you might remember that when I did the out of body chat, we touched briefly on the idea, I touched briefly on the idea that our early beginnings have a lot to do with our later life,
Hmm.
our early, if you like, childhood experiences, which is mine were very much Christian, Sunday school, and all of that, along with my sisters. And so, even now, though some of my journeys have taken to me to different worlds, that Christian principle remains somewhere, so that a lot of what happens to me personally, because I found that out of body takes different locations. So I might travel one day to one night to just down the road, and there's another one that has nothing to do with this world and everything to do with a sort of transparency of thought where anything can happen. And that idea of then of a man dying on the cross, while it might not have made a lot of sense, 2000 and many years on, when people have believed in this and died believing in that, as with the Titanic and all of those, the first thing we turn to, isn't it, is
Hmm.
that main sense of where can I go? And I think that even if that did not happen as it's sort of listed, 20, 2000 years of that and more will have created exactly that.
Yeah.
Mm.
It's
Mm.
kind of made I don't know what
Kind
you
of
call it.
reverse principle almost.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's actually it's made a life out of its own. A bit like the Robin Hood
sure,
story.
sure.
It becomes a real character.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
I mean, I'm not entirely sure that a lot of the things that we read in the Bible or actually, I've actually, as you should be reading them. I think a lot of
Mm,
it was actually written in the Middle Ages, in
right,
order to keep us all in order, basically. As a,
absolutely.
you know,
And then it
that,
would be somebody's opinion. So what
yes,
you're getting is perhaps historical facts, but that are really loaded with someone's idea of what they
yeah,
want you
yeah.
to remember and to
And
believe.
that's not criticising people's
No,
religions. It's
no,
just
not at
basically
all.
looking at it from your own point of view. I mean, when I was actually a confirmed member of the church when I was younger, I was actually used to go to Sunday school and everything. But when I got to about 15, I started thinking there's more to a lot of this, and I
Sure.
kind of lost interest in going to church and everything, and wanted to start looking deeper into things. And I found there's a whole lot more than just go to church if you know what I mean.
Yes,
You
yeah,
don't need to go to church to be within yourself to know that there's something more to life
absolutely.
than, you know.
Yeah. I think you only have to
It's very
walk
difficult to
out.
put into words
Yeah,
what I'm trying to say. It's
I understand you entirely. The world and the idea of thought is such a huge situation. The idea of life after death
hmm,
and all the various ways that this shows. Um, if I perhaps had lived in the 16th and 17th century, my stories out of body would have been very much quiet
yeah.
because such idea would be seen as
Well,
heresy,
you may well have been burnt at
burned
the
at the
stake as a
stake.
witch or something.
Mm.
Yeah.
I did once ask a question before going to sleep, and out of curiosity, I said, have I ever been a witch? At what point during the night, a placard was held up with Agnes so and so, 16 so and so, a whole list of names,
Oh, really?
supposedly of lives that I had viewed or entertained. And I thought, wow, wow. So I think sometimes if you just propose a thought somewhere along the line, something, someone will try to answer it for you.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've had some weird, well, not so much like that, but weird things like I've often thought about life, like previous lives or reincarnation.
Mm,
Um, and I don't know if they're imagined dreams or things like that, but I did do a regression thing a little while back,
mm,
and I don't think I went under properly because I got to a point where, you're supposed to be going through doors and you're being asked to go,
mm, mm.
sort of imagine this and imagine that and go through a door. And
Yeah.
I didn't know if I was actually making things up or if I was actually remembering these things, you
Yes.
know.
Yeah.
So I kind of didn't think, because I can actually remember what I was saying, but was I actually making it up? Was it from a film or something,
Yeah.
that sort of gets into your head?
The
And
self is always questioning the self.
yeah,
I think that partly in my experiences as an out of body traveler, which have really governed my life in so many ways, that I've realized now that this whole idea of imagination, the whole idea of the mind, as we're taught to sort of close it down. Oh, it's only your mind, or it's only in your imagination. But imagination is so vast, isn't
mm,
it? And it's I remember once my teacher always found that, if you like, I had a teacher that I kind of became aware of, who was always spoke to me from behind me. Never saw him face to face. It was always a male voice. It always seemed to sort of lead me out. And he said, "Let me show you something." And the various ways that I looked at it was, one particular time I was on a seashore, and there'd obviously been some sort of disaster at sea. And I was with a group of other beings who I was aware of. And our purpose was to go into the water and to pull these bodies out
oh,
and
I'll tell
draw
you
them,
what, this is actually getting quite creepy. Go on, carry on.
yeah, to bring them out onto the sand. And then there was lots of things going on, but my job, as it were, I was given a sort of like a skin like shroud, just a piece of like fine mesh, and I was to lay it over over these people, and it was almost as though it was a healing process, moving them from that state of gone to this state. Why do you say it was uncanny? Have you?
Well, no, not so much uncanny, but one of the memories I've got, if it was a false memory or whatever, and one that was being looked at when I was talking about this regression thing, was I drowned at sea on a like an old frigate type of thing, and
Oh,
it might sound crazy to some people. I can actually remember drowning.
well,
But is it,
yeah,
that's what I was saying, is it a memory or is it some sort
I
of a
think
false
you have
memory?
to
You know?
say that. What did you feel? Did you feel afraid?
Yeah.
That's the
I mean,
judge.
and also all of my life, I know, even like from childhood, I was always kind of not, yeah, I guess afraid of water. I mean, I'm
Yeah,
not so much now, obviously, but when I was a child, I hated going to swimming bowls or going to or going in the sea and everything because it used to terrify me.
because of your,
Um,
yeah, I think that probably was a memory. I belong to a group of people whose children have had that experience of saying, "Oh, I remember that. I remember you, mummy, when you were someone else," or "I remember being so when I remember dying." And it's very interesting reading these children's
mm,
experiences
mm,
where they can almost document. It seems to peter out around the age of 7. Up until then, you've got a lot of kind of, oh yes, but bit by bit, it's almost as if living now kind of conditions them to live in the now
yeah, yeah.
rather than. But so I would suggest to you that that probably was a memory.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say it was, but it's certainly something that even now, when I think about it, I do actually, yeah, when you think deeply, again, could it be imagination? I don't know, but I can actually still remember that drowning,
Yeah, and
you
that
know,
breathless and the
and that
fear.
and that would have been like I guess around about the 18th century. I'm thinking about,
Hmm.
but
Well, helping people in, I found that that became a very big part of, whereas in the early journeys, uh, I met my father, who passed over very young, very early on in the 60s. And for years, I didn't, wherever I went, and I went to lots of seances because that was my life. I was so interested in it all. He never really came until one day I was sitting in a group and this woman said, "Oh, yes, I have a James James." She went through this whole. She gave his whole name. He was known as Jim. He was known as Jack Taylor, and it was just so. And there was no way she could have known it because I went as Hamilton,
mm,
as
mm,
someone
mm.
other, and that then seemed to trigger something because that same night I was sort of wandering about out of body, and I saw what appeared to be lots of chest of drawers with mirrors. And I was drawn towards one of them, and it shimmered, and there was my dad. And he said, "Took your time, didn't it?" And that was just so my dad. It just so absolutely him. I've stopped saying now, is it my imagination? So many things have happened, David, so
Mm.
many experiences, uh, particularly next door neighbors saying to me, "Don't do that again, Dodie," of waking and finding me in their room.
Yeah, that
And
that
that,
is actually quite
yeah,
quite
lovely
shocking for them as
Iris.
well, I should think.
Yeah, she said, "Don't do it again, will you, Dodie?" And I was so shocked. I thought it made think I was a stalker. So, no, so many things I've seen,
It's
so
actually
many
quite
things
funny.
I've done.
Yeah,
So the imagination bit is wonderful because it's allowed me to write,
yeah,
10 books. But I think after a while I stopped questioning and just
yeah.
accepted.
I going back into the history of you were nursing, weren't you, for a number
Mm,
of years? How
mm.
many years was that, if I may ask?
Well, it was 1974 on for a very long time.
Yeah, so it's quite a
So,
while.
and most of it in latter years was working with dying people.
Right, okay.
Mm.
I mean, did you ever talk to doctors about your experiences, or did
Mm.
they actually experience anything that you've experienced?
There was one particular incident which was very complex. I was a very old man who became particularly fond of me for some reason as a nurse, perhaps because I would, because of what I did, palliative care, I could sit and talk with them.
Mm.
But this particular night I came on duty, I was on nights, and I had a young Chinese nurse with me who was a student and was very, very nervous. And I went in with him. And as we were talking to him, he died. He just kind of sort of collapsed back in the bed. So I said to this nurse, go get the doctor. And she left the room with me there. And then there was this kind of flicker in his eyes, and he was back. And the doctor was suddenly behind me, and he went, oh, false call. But from that moment on, this lovely old boy kept talking to me as if I was his wife. He referred to me all the time as his wife, and he kept telling me, always talking about this particular cupboard in the bedroom, in the certain drawer, which was where it was. Well, I don't know. You can find it there. He kept saying, don't worry, you can find it there. Well, this became a bit of a bother for his real wife, who would visit, and he would completely ignore her and he would remember his daughter, strangely, but not his current wife, who was stepmother to this daughter. Eventually, he did die. And when I spoke to the daughter afterwards, I said, what was he talking? She said he was talking about his will. His will was in that. That was very odd. The doctor said to me that he'd come across that with certain nurses that had, he thought, created a kind of channel between the kind of just dying. That it said it's a kind of sympathy you have, a kind of sympathy that's within the dying person relates to. And he then went on to tell me of lots of experiences he had where he would be on night duty and he would perhaps fall asleep as a student or as an intern, and he would literally walk around asleep between the beds, and he would see visitors around. So, and this was a scientific man, truly aged, good man. But he remembered, and he said, I had to put it on one side in order to be who I am. He said, I had to put it on one side.
Mm. Do you feel that in the medical field that it's becoming more acceptable now that there
Yeah,
actually is a life after death?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Before, I think that it was the whole thing about science is being questioned anyway, isn't it? Because of this idea of,
In every aspect, yeah.
yeah, and parallel worlds, the whole thing. So even Einstein is being sort of questioned now. And I think that, yes, as I talk about Robert Monroe, who wrote the most marvelous books on journeys out of body, he said that in the 50s, when he first started remembering his time and talking about his time, he met people like you and I who have interests in UFOs, and he said you were much more of an underground movement then, a sort of secret society. Whereas now, he passed in 1995, and last time I spoke to him, he said that it was in that 1995 much more acceptable. So now 2025, I think that the whole idea of, yes, there is much more, and the idea that when you die, everything dies. I think that is now seen as rather old-fashioned almost.
Yeah. Yeah, because it used to be that there used to be a thing that something in your brain is kind of like a
Yeah,
protective mechanism that
yeah,
makes you feel as if you're going to somewhere nice and peaceful and everything. And it's just a
yeah,
thing for yourself. But
yeah.
I
I
think
think it was something that they could say
yeah,
that
because there was
made
no
kind of
evidence for it
sense.
really, was there? There's like an endorphin or something released in the brain, wasn't it, or something?
Yes. And I think that from the stories that I've read and from the people that I've spoken to and from my own experiences, and there is a kind of a knowledge within the self that sort of takes over of the dying process, where where the body reacts in the way it would do, tries to survive,
Mm.
but the spiritual self, the conscious spirit self, seraph self, sort of comes to terms with what's going on. What I saw so many times as a nurse was this: people holding as they were dying, holding out their hands. My journey with my mum when she was dying, she was doing this. My sister, who would be with me watching, many years later said, "Oh, yeah," she said, "that used to make me afraid. It was mum pushing somebody over." I said, "No, she wasn't pushing them
He was
away.
welcoming somebody.
She was welcoming them in."
Yeah.
"Oh," she said, "do you believe that?" She said, "You're not just being yourself, are you?" I said, "No."
Well, it's like a come and get me type of thing,
Yeah,
isn't it? Yeah.
it was yes, yes. And that whole expression of kind of, oh, yes. So, yeah, I think that the self, the other self, the greater self prepares a way. But then, of course, you've got experiences of people who have seen their loved ones after they died, seen them,
Mm.
watched them um, sort of go about things in a normal manner. I had a friend who said that, well, after her mum died, there was a long kind of silence, a lot of grief. And then one day she came downstairs, walked into the kitchen, and there was her mum standing over uh, the stove, but just looking out of the window. And she said, I just said, "Oh, hi, mum." And I carried on. She said, because I was so used. And then I went, "Oh," and I went back and she was gone.
Right.
I
Mm.
know. One of the things I do have found out is that my a pet will visit. I used to have two Siamese cats, Ty and Mig. Beautiful they were. And because of some uncertainties, when Cressida, our daughter, was born, um, they became not, it was awful, really. They became kind of aggressive.
Oh,
And
right.
so
Yeah.
I gave them away. I gave them away to a friend. But what happened was Ty escaped and was picked up by someone else. So we brought Ming home. I felt very bad about that for years until eventually, when Ming died, I couldn't get over it. I was sort of just couldn't stop thinking bad. And then one night, they always used to do the same thing. They would jump on the bed, they would pat, pat, pat on my face. I would lift the covers up, they would go underneath. Ty would go round and round and drop in the back of my knees, and Ming, the heavier cat, would sleep on my feet. Got so used to this. This particular night, I woke up to hear the thud, thud. And I thought, oh, and again, like this woman, I thought, oh, it's the cats. Lifted the clothes up, down they went. And I thought, oh, it's the cats. And I lifted the sheet up, and there were these eyes. And I think, I mean, I'm 82. I'm an old woman, so it might sound terribly sort of.
I have to say at this point, you don't look it.
Thank you. I think that's to do with the out of body thing. I think that time slips, but I think I felt then that the cats forgave me. They said, "It's all right. You can stop worrying about that."
Mm.
And I thought, yeah. And it was lovely, lovely feeling.
Mm.
And I think that the more you feel these things, the more connection you get, the
Yeah.
more you ask, the more you open yourself. Have you ever seen a ghost?
I don't think so. There was one time when I was about 14 or 15, when I was living in London, actually. I went round to a friend's house, and we went into his house as normal. We went up to his bedroom. We used to play records and things like that. And I looked out of his window to the house just next door. And you know how kids are, when I was sort of 15, a teenage, but I said, "Who's that old woman looking at over there?" Because there was a woman looking out the window.
Yeah.
And he looked at me and said, "Don't say that." I said, "What?" He
Oh,
said, "She died yesterday." The old lady that was next door.
oh.
And I looked again and it was gone. So that
Yes.
was kind of the only
Yeah,
experience
a memory in the house.
that's the
Yeah.
only kind of ghost, well, whether it was a ghost or it was my imagination, I don't know. But that was the only instance I can think of actually seeing a ghost
The thing
as
is, though,
such.
why would it be?
Or was it a visitor in the house who just happened to
Yeah,
be,
why would it be your imagination? You didn't know of anything about this
No, I
lady.
didn't know anything.
You were there
I didn't
as a
even know the
lad,
people. I didn't
and
even
you
know the
just
people
looked
next
out,
door. You
and
know?
there was this face. So
Yeah.
it something, and possibly even you were meant to see. you know, you were meant to see that face looking out just as a kind of reminder
Yeah, I mean, it
to,
did send a shiver down my spine at the
mm,
time. But then I thought about it afterwards. I thought maybe it was somebody in the house and they were visiting and they sort of just happened to look out the window the same time I was there because I didn't actually know the lady next door, so I wouldn't know what she looked like or anything.
oh,
But that was kind of the only instance. The only other thing I can tell you about is when I was a young child. I was actually in my cot, I think, living in London, and I can remember a purple mist coming into my room and coming right round the room. It swirled round. If anyone's heard this story before on anything, but you have to forgive me. But it came right round up to me, scared the life out of me. I didn't know what ghosts were or anything like that. And in my baby language, or if I was just learning to talk, I don't know, but I was screaming at this thing,
mm,
and my father came in and he couldn't see this mist, but I could still see it. And
mm.
it was still sort of there, and it kind of swelled round and swelled back out the room again. Um, what that was, I don't know. I mean, all I can say is it was a purple mist that I could see
And you saw it.
that he
And you
couldn't.
saw it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Um, I would say I was probably around about I don't know because I can remember I was still in my cot before I had a proper bed type of thing. So I was probably maybe 18 months or something like
Yes.
old
Yeah.
or whatever.
But that clearly left a huge impression
Oh, I've always remembered
on
it.
you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, you know, I think that like you, I had lots of little visitations as the younger me, um, so that when my outer body thing became so strong and so such a huge part of my life, that I kind of had to work out what was of this, if you like, dimension. What was another outer body dimension? Did I walk between worlds? Was I seeing living things that were living? And
Hmm.
in the end, I kind of had created a kind of code. What is so marvelous about the outer body thing? And you know how I feel about that expression because it's so wrong. You're not out of body.
Hmm.
You're in a different state of consciousness, and your body's very much involved because it's your if you like earthbound thing. It earths you so that, for instance, as if Cressida would cry as a baby, boom, I would be back because my earthbound self would have heard. So the out of body thing is wrong. But the other idea of astral projection, I also find to be wrong. I think that sort of spaces it out. It's an incredibly personal thing and an incredibly and scary, very scary
Is
at
it not
times.
kind of the same thing with different description?
Uh, what you mean, out of body and astral?
Yeah.
I feel no. I feel that the outer body is just something that's been used as a sort of a jargon because out of the astral thing creates an idea of what it is, and that's come up through people like Dion Fortune, you know, and the Rosie Dawn and all of that. And I think yes, there is a connection astral, but what does astral mean? You know, the
Hmm.
idea, it sort of gives it a scientific label, which I think so many times I've seen things. I, you know, the whole idea of this UFO, we tend to think of it, you don't because you're much more involved with it, as is David Hobbs. We tend to think of it as metal spaceships and things like that. But from what I've seen with my journeys, the UFO thing is very much an interior.
Hmm.
It's an internal conversation going on. So that one particular dream I had was where I was inside some sort of craft and looking out at the most extraordinary sky. Have you ever seen the film Contact with Jodie?
Yes.
You
Yes.
know that
Yeah.
wonderful film.
Hmm.
There's part of it at the end where she is visited. She gets in that machine. She goes through different areas, and she is visited by a guy who pretends, or by a creature, a being who takes on the shape of her father, so she won't be scared. And she's
Hmm.
looking up at this immense sky, where this. I remember looking at this extraordinary sky that went on forever, and this amazing feeling of love and of peace and of life beyond any idea of I had. And there was little old Dodie inside, you know, the little person trying to struggle with this. And the other Dodies, you know, saying, well, no, it's the most personal and wonderful thing.
Mm.
So astral traveling to me sounds like um, it is something much more clinical. That's the word, clinical.
Mm.
Mm.
I mean, it's something you actually can control as well, isn't it? Apparently. I think you said.
To a degree, yes. Yeah, because the the whole willingness to go out has to be there. You have to want to do it. There were times, I think I said, where I've been lying in bed and I've woken up and thought, what the heck is that noise? And there's been two men talking. I could hear them, and one was pulling on a cigarette, puff, 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 and they were discussing the parts of an aircraft. And they were inside. I couldn't see them; I could only hear them. But it was obviously a huge hangar-like place because the voices would echo. And this was going on, and I thought, and in the end, I got fed up. I said, "For heaven's sakes, clear off!" And it was gone. So there is that aspect, but it's also the aspect of rolling out of body, standing out, and this creature coming at me, like, you know, the kind of the thing you see in all movies of the centaur rear end
Mm.
and this human top, and we had, and automatically I fought him. So what was fighting him? This, you know, little lady or
Yeah.
some force? And we fought up and down the room until eventually the coward in me said, no, had enough of that, dropped back into my body. So
Oh, yeah.
you can control a little bit, but there are surprises, huge surprises.
Because maybe you become part of something else that was
Yes,
fighting that other
greater
being.
team.
Yeah.
Yeah, a greater team. The lovely people in Stansted Research Building always refer to guides or whatever as your team. They never ever see it as one person or one North American Indian or whatever
Mm.
you see, but rather as a team. And I think that the team in UBIS or in any of that is you plus, 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 and always accompanied by a safe person, a
Mm.
safe being, one that can fetch you out
Mm.
when you're scared. There's a marvelous guy who lived turn of this century, Isaac Swedenborg, who wrote lots and lots of books about this. And his experience was of bilocation. And that's the thing that really puzzles me, bilocation, because 3 times in my life, during different stages of my life, different people have told me they saw me. The first one created a lot of jokes. It was when I was working in a big company, and I used to talk to this engineer, lovely old guy, and we were quite friendly. And this particular time, I walked into his laboratory area, and it was full of guys. And he said, I saw you last night. You came into my room. And of course, oh, you know, there was that,
Yeah. All
yeah,
the
da, da, da. He
dirty
said,
jokes and
no,
all
he
that.
said, you brought my wife with me. You brought my wife with you. So I don't remember that. I don't remember his wife had passed on a couple of years before. He said it was a wonderful experience. You brought her to me. That was one. The other one was very, very, very dramatic, and uh, again sounds like something out of a book. But someone I used to work with was in hospital, and she said via someone else, please tell Dodie to come and visit me. So I went to visit her, and she said, thank you. I said, for what? She said, it's going to sound very melodramatic, but you saved my life. I said, how? She had been in a car accident. She'd rolled down the bank in this car, and there was petrol fumes or whatever. I don't remember any of this. She said, and you were outside the car and you were tapping on the window. Get out, Greta. Get out, Greta. Well, I don't remember that, but I had an idea of what she saw. I said, well, you know me, don't you? She said, yes. I said, we've worked together. She said, yes. And she said, you know the sort of things I do, don't you? She said, yeah. She said, that was probably, if you like, either a part of you saying, get out and giving yourself something to stimulate me, or maybe a guide or a helper who thought, well, would she come out for Dodie easier than? So those things, that I cannot explain them at all, other than somewhere or other we can be far, we are much more than we think we are.
And we probably all do it, whether you believe in it or not.
Mm.
We probably all do it, unknown to ourselves.
Yeah.
I feel that when we have these dreams that we're flying through the air or something, that maybe we're doing some astral traveling. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. It is a, if I've said absolutely 4 or 5 times on this program, I'm sorry, but I'm excited when things I hear like that. That, to me, there are certain symbols that say to me, oh, yes, a journey. One is a car, the other is a bus, the third is a train, and the fourth is the idea of flying. The KA, my little car, KA, is, I think, Chinese or Japanese word for soul. So KA. I think that when you dream of being in your car or of something to do with your car, it's a symbol of self saying, this is a journey, whatever. Hence, I often see myself in a parking lot going to my little car. Then there is the idea of the bus, which carries lots of people.
Yeah, I've had these bus dreams myself, sitting
Yeah,
at the front of the bus, and you're
yeah,
very, very high up,
yeah.
and
Joint
it's
joint
kind of
visits.
flying along quite
Yeah,
quickly, and
joint visits.
yeah.
I had a Lollapalooza with a bus, and this was when I was pretty young. I think probably about 20. I dreamt I was on a bus, yeah, a real old-fashioned bus, and I knew that every single person on the bus had died. There was men, women, children, and they all were quite kind of perky and happy. But I knew that I had not, but I was there as an observer. So the bus trundles along, and then there's so much more to this dream, but all I really remember is drawing up outside of this huge building, massive, massive big building, where there was the sort of stereotype Buddhist monks. And each one of these people went with a monk away, and a monk came for me. And I thought, oh, maybe I have died. And he took me to a lectern, like the old-fashioned church lectern, upon which was this great, great big book. Boom, opened it up. And he started reading from it. And it was a certain journeys of my life. And I started crying because a lot of it was not good. A lot of it was petty. And I sobbed in a way that I only ever sobbed before, really from my soul, regret, And I think that the idea was, look, your life is dictated, your life is remembered. This is what's happened so far. It may have been life after life after life. I don't know, because it was such a big book. But I know that it left me feeling so humble and so nothing, and to go back and do something better. So the bus thing is definitely a symbol for more than, and the train, that's another one. The train.
I can't remember ever being on a train like that, but the bus one I've had several times, and it's kind of you're right on the top of the front of the bus, and it's really harried along, and it's kind
Yeah.
of
And can you see out the front?
yes, yeah,
Yeah, that's the thing of seeing where you're going. And the thing of flying, that's a cracking dream. But that is out
and
of.
then you wake up in a start, don't you? As
Yeah,
if it's
I see it as the lucid dream that if you hold on to it, if you think, I am dreaming, it perhaps will take you into a further state. Lucid dreams very useful.
yeah.
The the whole thing of, writing is a weird thing. One of my heroes in A Second Chance, which is one of the bestsellers, was an American soldier, an American soldier. It was really all about an angel, Gabriel, the Templar. But this character that I had to write about as well, his name was Ash Hunter. And he was my, if you like, hero in it, because the angel was kind of set apart. And I wrote about this, and I, in the end, wrote 4 books, which sort of ended with this one. I got to show you. Look,
Yep.
Fettered Wings.
Fettered Wings. All
Fettered Wings.
available on Amazon, no doubt.
Yeah, and he's completely in this one. He's got his wings, which is the first book out. So you've got those lovely wings. In the last one, he's a man. But
Right.
what struck me about this, the same year as Fettered Wings was finished, a friend said to me, I've got this wonderful meeting in London. Do you want to come? So I said, yeah. She said, you won't know them, they won't know you, because you're not allowed to give your name, you give a number. That way it keeps you away from being personalized. So it was all very secretive, but all very wonderful. And it was a seance, lovely old-fashioned seance, a table and everything. And right in the middle of it, this fabulous medium, her voice switched, completely switched, and she became a real drawl, southern drawl, male voice. And the interlocutor said, is there someone you want to? Yeah, I want to talk to Dodie. So I was so excited. I thought, don't know about America. He said, hello, my lady. And he talked completely in the way that I imagine Ash Hunter would talk. And he talked of being a soldier, and he talked of this and that. And I thought, hang on a minute. Therefore, did I write imaginary characters? Or did I actually pick up on someone who did actually live?
Wow, yeah.
And is this coming through, or is it my imagination coming? Oh, it was fantastic. He said, you did a good job, honey. It's just brilliant.
Well, I mean, it could well be something channeling through you to put, yeah,
It made me look back on the book, and especially
when something surprises yourself, it's
yeah, I thought, because this voice was just this lovely, deep, honey drawl. It's very strong and dark. And he talked about his childhood, which I didn't know about, but he knew about.
That's very interesting. I mean, I'm a great reader of David Icke. I don't know if you
Oh,
ever,
yeah,
but
lovely.
he says, I mean, he's always saying that the amount of books that he's written, he doesn't know where it comes from. He just sits down and starts writing, and it just comes, you know.
Yeah,
And so I think he's channeling something as well himself.
yeah.
And when you hear him talking, I don't know if you've ever been to one of his talks, but it's just sort of endless. He doesn't need notes or anything. It just
No,
comes.
stream of consciousness.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
But I think it's a very similar thing to what you're talking about.
I think so too. In The Lighthouse Keepers, uh, although it's a story, sexual story and all the rest of it, young lovers fall, it's really about a near-death experience experienced by two people, a bomb disposal expert blown up Afghanistan, and a girl hurt in a car crash, and of the two beds being almost side by side. And so you go through the book and you are reading what appears to be about their life, that reliving through a kind of out-of-body experience or near death. But in the middle of it, there is my teacher. I had to tell of my teacher who takes me traveling, because he once showed me, in the book, I give the character a motorbike. So the angel is on a motorbike and the girl is hanging onto his back. And he shows her the doll's house, this huge doll's house with sort of line after line, tray after tray after tray. The doll's house opens up and there's all these creatures, there's moons and stars. He said different worlds, parallel lives. So it shuts, and he said a doll's house, doll's house. He kept saying, this is a doll's house, a doll's house. And then he showed me the front of the doll's house, which was a little pond. And the more I looked, the more I noticed that a piece of the bank had fallen away. And the closer I looked, I realized it was Lego, little tiny pieces of Lego. As I saw that, a hand came out of the pond and tidied the Lego away. And this is when the angel said to me, whose hand was that, Dodie? And I said, mine. He said, yes. He said, you're all children. And this, if you like, is your house, your doll's house. I thought, wow. So I had to put that into The Lighthouse Keepers because it made so much sense. So we are young people, but are we young people or are we as in reluctant angels, are we beginnings of angels?
Yeah, it's a very interesting. I mean, that's something that always goes through my mind when we're talking about life on this earth. We're such a very small speck in the vastness of the universe,
Mm,
and yet when we're on this earth, everything seems so important.
mm,
I mean, and also, I kind of think, are we really that important on this planet? Or are we just one civilization of vast civilizations out there? So that when we die, when that time comes, and we want to come back, if we are, there is a thing called the trap, where we are trapped into
mm,
um,
yes.
reincarnation cycle. Could we go to any one of those other worlds, other planets and star
Mm.
systems, or is it just this one? How do you feel
Oh,
about
it
that?
can't be. It can't be. Um, during it's a super question, super question. During a as I was, I think during the group, I told you about a group I used to have
Mm,
where we used to connect with what we were told was, um, shall we say, another being who would always introduce themselves as Unuhut, which is we found out later was Inuit for good evening. So they never really actually gave us an acronym. But at one point, um, this whole idea of like it was so vast to me what we were watching. I said, "Can you tell me one thing, therefore, about the Bible that is true, or one thing about Christianity that is true?" And they said, "Yes." And that's the final end of a prayer. Um, Words without end, evermore. That last world without end. He said, that is an absolute. That is an absolute. So when we are saying that at the end of, usually it's at the end of a prayer, uh, world without end, we're actually telling the truth. And that's the one thing he said that so you can be absolutely sure of, that the world is without end, world after world after world after word. And I thought, wow. Everything else, he said, can be an illusion, but that much is real.
mm. Yeah, I always think about the subatomic aspect of it as well. As we know, nothing is solid, everything is atoms and
Mm.
electrons and everything else. Are they actually worlds within worlds as well, in that same type of
Yeah.
thing? You
Well,
know?
that thing recently that's been sort of promoted as the idea that Atlantis was not a city, but it was actually a civilization, a long age civilization. So that when people refer to Atlantis, they might be thinking they're talking about cities, or it's actually a large, long civilization that was preceded by other civilizations. And if you think now of what we know about the Sphinx and the pyramids, that they actually within the pyramid there is another pyramid
Mm,
underneath, that we're looking at not 5 or 7,000 years, but tens of thousands of years. That this planet is very old. But what is so sad is that it now appears to be approaching the end of an, we can't call it Atlantis, but we could call it of this age. It appears to be reaching a point where there is a rollover into the next. What's happening in Los Angeles, the fires, and the actual nature of the world. And I just think that if there are worlds out there that can visit and that can do, as we've seen pictures of their ships and whatever, why don't they help out? You know, when
mm.
they hovered over that, if it's true that they hovered over that terrible fire where little creatures were dying, why didn't they help out?
Mm.
If their civilization is so advanced, why didn't you know that
Well,
that
these things are happening all the time over in this world. It's like I
yeah,
was saying,
yeah.
there's so many things that happen in this world, and when you actually look in the vastness of the universe, are they really that important? I know they're important to us because we're here, we're living it. But
I
you
think
know,
they're important to a creator. I really do
mm,
believe that within all of this mishmash, that that the someone recently asked me what I thought of what was love, and my first immediate thought was respect. absolute respect.
Mm.
Um, as you love Jill and as I love Dennis, absolute respect. And from that, the physical manifestations of, and
Yeah,
I do
it's
think,
complete trust and complete
yeah,
respect. Yeah.
absolutely. And I think that this world is so beautiful, it's so natural, and the birds and the foxes and everything. There was a great deal of love initially brought into the idea of this creating. So I can't help but think that something greater than the human thoughts does love, does create, does give, and that feeling of serenity that I had looking out over that vast journeys out of body. It's a label that I wish I could destroy,
Mm.
because it kind of makes you think that it is all about you have to, and I don't think you do. I don't think um, I suffer from restless leg syndrome, and I
Oh,
don't.
I have had that. I know what it.
Yeah,
I know
you know
how
that's.
uncomfortable it is. Yeah.
And I would get up and I would pedal like mad and
Mm.
to make them tired, and I would go back to bed. This particular night, I did all of that. I must have done it so much, I exhausted, dropped back into bed. And with that, there was this whoosh sound that seemed to emanate through the sort of third eye area. And I was displaced, just sort of as if I was gently picked up and placed, like, say, maybe 6 or 7 inches outside of my body. So while all the stuff was still going on in this body, the twitching and the what have you, this body didn't seem to mind, didn't seem to care. It sort of was, oh well, that's the physical. This part was not really worried. And
Mm.
I've come across that over and over again in people telling me of their tales of near death experience, that they get to a point where everything that was of earth drops away. All the things that mattered to them, all the things that they live and die, drops away. And in its place comes this extraordinary love,
Mm. Mm.
extraordinary joy. And that in being asked to go back, it's a big thing to come back.
Yeah. Well, I think Jill told you, Jill, my wife, told
Yeah,
you about
your lady
her
knows.
her little thing that she. I mean, way before I knew her, she died. I think it was twice or maybe even 3 times on the way to hospital, and because she's got asthma,
Mm.
but and apparently the hospital, the ambulance drivers actually came into the hospital the next day to see how she was, and they
Oh,
told her that she died on the way to hospital twice.
did she tell them? Did she tell them at all of her experience?
I don't think she probably did
No,
back then.
no, she probably kept a lot of it
I
within
mean, I
herself.
think she's quite a different person to what she was back then.
Yeah,
Because of the life she was living and everything.
yeah, I get it.
Since I've known her, she's come out of herself a lot.
Well, she's got
Um,
you, hasn't she, as a kind
well,
of
maybe that, but she,
allows her to
in
live.
her experience, that she was given the choice as to whether to come back or not, and she decided that yes, I want to go back because she had younger children and at
Mm,
that time.
mm.
Um, And also, the other funny thing was about it, I think she might have told you about this fascination with David that she's always had
Yeah,
from childhood. She never knew
yeah,
where it came from,
wonderful.
which is another strange thing. Maybe it was me that she knew she was going to meet one day. I don't know. It's just one of
Well,
those things.
I think so. I think there is a precursor. I think there is a part of us that says, oh, hello. When I met Dennis, I was very much involved with a professor at the Royal Institute. And so my world was kind of completely different. But what I would love, I like to work, I used to love to do crossword puzzles. So I would do them, and in my lunch hour, this particular time, did crossword puzzle, put it down, went away, came back, and I thought, and it was a very tricky question. It was an opera question, and it was the Little Vixen, and it was not many people would know the answer to it. And somebody put the right answer. I said, who did this? The voice said, I did. And there he was, 23 years old, beautiful. And my soul went boom a boom. And I said to him later, I loved you the minute I saw you. He said, rubbish. He said, you passed me the salt for a year. and you didn't know I existed. You sit on the same dinner table as me. You were so involved with that guy, you didn't know I existed. But the moment I put that in the crossword,
It
we
was a
chose
click.
to look. Yeah,
Yeah.
lovely.
Yeah, it's a nice story, actually. Yeah.
Well, bring that up sometimes, and then I say, well, yeah, we've been married 50 years. You get less for murder.
Yeah, I say that to Jill sometimes, but we've only been together for 13 years now, so
That's lovely. You look so very happy together. You look
yeah, we
so
do. We get on well. It's,
sorted.
we don't fight over many things, apart from TV shows and things like that, or movies,
Yeah,
or some music or whatever. But
yeah.
but but we're looking forward to seeing you again, hopefully
Yes, I
next
should be
week.
there February 7th with
And
my friend
Andy
Louise.
Collins, if anyone's watching this, you don't know who's
Yeah,
coming up next. It's Andrew Collins, who often appears on Ancient Aliens.
yeah,
He'll
he's
be, is it the 7th, is it? I think it's the 7th.
yes, it is.
7th of
I'm bringing
February
a new friend
at the
who has
Balmoral.
joined, Louise.
Oh,
So
good. That's nice.
yeah,
Yeah.
she
So,
wants to be involved.
but anyone get going, I mean, I shouldn't tell you this because you nick all the car parking spaces, but get there early.
Oh yeah, yeah, Murderous Park.
But
Yeah.
there is a car park round us, not too far, a couple of minutes walk away, which I believe is free after a certain time anyway. So,
Well, I
uh,
do definitely plan to. I've really enjoyed this tonight. You know,
oh, I've loved it. I mean, the time's gone so quickly, actually. I
maybe we
mean,
could do it again.
we can do it again. Maybe we can talk about UFOs or something next time.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah, we definitely do it again, Dodie. But
I'd love to.
before you go, I mean, give us a little bit because you do also you can talk to people, can't you? They can visit you to do.
Yes. Well,
Is it like a counselling type of thing
well,
you
the,
can
the
do? Or,
spiritual midwife part of me is with people who are dying, but it's also with people who have, if you like, died. So I work on that. The nurse in me works with the people that are dying, not a limited amount now because I'm old. The other part,
you're not old. You're not old.
I think I'm probably about 2,000 years old,
We're
really.
getting on a bit, but we're not old.
The other part, the spiritual midwife of me talks to people who are afraid of dying and
Right.
so on. But I'm also an absolute avid follower of old systems like the runes and the tarot. I
Oh,
love
that's
them.
interesting. Yeah.
I love the tarot,
Oh, we
absolutely.
have to come for a reading, shouldn't I, one day?
Yeah, and I use Aleister Crowley, which everybody says,
Oh, right.
oh no, you
The
shouldn't
Black
use it.
Magician. Yeah.
Yeah, but wonderful pack of cards at top. Yeah, so yeah, I don't see people face to face so much now because I've got so many clients now
Right.
in Japan.
Oh, right. You do a lot of online stuff, yeah.
Yeah, I do, and I love Japan, and I'm actually now in South Korea, which is major. It's just a few edge, and that really pleasing to me because
Mm.
I'm very interested in their culture.
Right. So, if anyone wanted to get in touch with you, how would they do that, for instance?
Well, they could find me on Facebook's probably a good way to go, or I won't give you my phone number because
No, no, don't give me your phone number.
just off the wall. But yeah, probably through Facebook or through my books. Buy a book.
Yes, because you'll
Buy
have your
one of my
connect.
books. If you buy, say, The Lighthouse Keepers, which is very much a cerebral thing, that tells you a lot about me, and it has a lot of connections in there. I love to meet people. Love
Mm.
them.
Right, and if you'd like to meet Dodie, come and meet her at the Essex
Absolutely.
UFO and
Oh,
Paranormal
yeah.
Group.
I love that group. It's so real.
It's a nice little group, yeah.
And David Hobbs, to me, is one of the first real, what I call ghost hunters, the true ghost
He's a
hunter,
very interesting character. I did
isn't
do
he
one of
just?
these little shows with him, and some of the things he came out with was that blew my mind, to be honest.
Yeah, and he's
Much
so
as
kind of,
you have.
he's so calm about it all, isn't he?
Yeah,
He's
he
so
does. It's
kind of,
all
it's
nonchalant, isn't
like,
it? Oh, it's just one of these
no.
things. It happens. Yeah. It's normal to me, you know.
Yeah.
Anyway, Daddy, I'll let you go. Thank you so much for coming on, and we will
No,
do it again.
it's been a great pleasure. And if you could tell me how to get out of this thing, what I have
Oh,
to
don't
do.
worry. I'll just shut it down. Just shut
Yeah,
it. There's a little
I'm
cross up in the top of this thing, so just shut it down
I'm such a
when you're
baby.
ready.
It's a good job I have Dennis, otherwise I wouldn't have written anything.
No,
So see you
it'll
on the
just,
7th, if
yeah.
not before.
We'll see you on the 7th, if not before. But
And
take
give
care of
Jill my
yourself, and
love.
I will do. Thank you. And take care of yourself, all right?
I
So I'll
will
see you on
do.
the 7th.
Yeah,
Right, bye
lovely.
everyone, and thanks for having a little listen. And I hope you found it interesting. I'm sure you would have done. And come and meet Dodie if you get the chance.
Do.
All right.
Yes, do.
Thanks everyone for listening. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.